I knew the exact moment he entered the room because my body reacted before my mind did, shoulders tensing, breath catching, heart tightening like a fist around its own pulse. It was always like that with him. Instinct dressed up as devotion. Fear disguised as love. Or maybe I'd just forgotten where one ended and the other began. "Did you eat today?" he asked. The question sounded caring, but his eyes skimmed over my waist, my hips, the softness I'd learned to hide beneath oversized sweaters. His gaze was a scalpel, sharp, clinical, pretending to heal while cutting deeper with every pass. "Yeah," I said. "A little." "A little," he repeated, lips curving, not quite a smile. "Maybe stick to that. You look healthier when you don't overdo it." There it was, coated in sugar, but still poison. A bruise disguised as a compliment. Still, I nodded like I agreed. Like it didn't crack something inside me every time. Because that was the game we played. He pressed, I folded. He withdrew, I chased. Love bomb, withhold, repeat. I told myself it was normal. I told myself this was how passion worked, messy and consuming and painful. And I clung to him because without him, I wasn't sure there was enough left of me to stand. He brushed a strand of hair behind my ear, gentle, tender, the kind of gesture that rewrote entire memories. "I missed you," he murmured. "You always look beautiful when you're trying." Trying. As if my entire existence was an audition for his approval. But I swallowed the sting and leaned into his touch. I always did. Because he'd been there, when the hospital went quiet, when the machine stopped, when the only parent I had left slipped out of the world, leaving me with a silence I thought would bury me alive. I'd fallen into him like a pit, mistaking the drop for salvation. Mistaking his arms for safety instead of dependency disguised as care. He was the first person who didn't look away from my grief, and maybe that's why I forgot I was supposed to look away from him. Now, every time he spoke, my emotions moved like tides responding to a moon I never asked for, pulling me close, pulling me under. I watched him move around my apartment like it belonged to him. Like I belonged to him. And maybe, in some twisted way, I did. Not because he ever asked for ownership, but because I offered it up, hoping he'd fill the growing hollow inside me. "Come here," he said, dropping onto the couch. His voice was softer now, coaxing. The version of him I could never resist. The one that made me forget the comments, the jabs, the lingering glances at my body that rewired my sense of worth. I crossed the room, slow, measured, because being near him always felt like approaching a cliff, beautiful, dangerous, magnetic. He opened his arms, and I sank into them, letting myself be held like I wasn't breaking. He pressed a kiss to the top of my head, and for a moment, just a breath-long moment, I felt safe. Warm. Wanted. "I worry about you," he whispered. "I just want you to be your best." His best. Not mine. But I let the lie soothe me anyway. Because losing him felt impossible. Because being without him felt like standing on a planet with no atmosphere. Because somewhere along the line, I'd confused love with survival, and now I didn't know how to pry them apart. He pulled me tighter, arms wrapping around me like vines, tightening in ways that felt like comfort until they didn't. "I love you," I whispered, mostly to convince myself. He didn't say it back. He never did, not right away. He waited, always waited, until my chest went hollow with longing, until the ache was sharp enough to bend me. Only then did he finally murmur, "I love you too." And God help me, I believed him. The next morning, I woke to the sound of him in the kitchen, cupboards opening too hard, the scrape of a mug against the counter, that restless energy he carried like a storm trapped beneath his skin. I lay still, listening, hoping it was one of his good days. The days where he was warm, affectionate, almost gentle. The days where I felt like I mattered. When I stepped into the kitchen, he glanced up, eyes flicking over me with that same measuring look he always used, like he was assessing damage. Or flaws. "You're wearing that?" he asked, nodding toward my loose t-shirt and pajama shorts. "It's just morning," I murmured. "I haven't changed yet." "Yeah," he said, turning away, "just thought you'd care more." The words hit like a slap dressed in silk. I swallowed, pretending I didn't feel the shame curl cold in my stomach. pretending I wasn't already replaying every outfit I'd worn recently, searching for the version of me he would approve of. "I can change," I said softly. "If you want." He sighed, loud, performative. "No, forget it. It's fine." But it wasn't. It never was. The air thickened between us, heavy with everything he wouldn't say but made sure I felt anyway. I made coffee, hands trembling slightly, pretending the bitterness in the air was only from the beans. He leaned against the counter, scrolling on his phone. I caught a glimpse, photos of models, all sharp cheekbones and impossible waistlines. My throat tightened. "Do you ever think I'm enough?" I asked, surprising myself. The question slipped out raw, like an exposed nerve. He glanced up, blinked once. "Don't get dramatic. I didn't say you weren't enough." A beat. "I just think you could put in more effort. That's all." Effort. Effort. The word echoed in my skull like a cruel mantra. "I try," I whispered. "I know you do," he said, stepping closer, suddenly soft again. His hands found my waist, fingers pressing into flesh he wished wasn't there. "That's why I'm hard on you. I want you to be your best. And I know you can be beautiful." The pause before beautiful sliced deeper than the word itself. But then he kissed me slow, tender, the version of him I always craved. And, just like that, the world tilted. My shame dissolved into desperate relief. The cycle spun again. Hurt, soothe, hurt, soothe. My emotional whiplash so familiar it felt sacred. "I'm sorry," I murmured against his lips, though I wasn't sure what for. Existing incorrectly, maybe. His arms tightened around me. "It's okay. I forgive you." Forgive me. For what? But the warmth of his affection blurred the question until I forgot why it mattered. We spent the afternoon together, and he was sweet, playful even. He touched me like I was precious, looked at me like I was something he chose, not something he tolerated. I floated on it, addicted to the high, addicted to the illusion of security he gave in just the right doses to keep me starved. That night, he held me as we watched a movie, his fingers tracing circles on my arm. I felt safe again. Stable. Like maybe the morning didn't matter. Maybe I'd imagined the cruelty behind his words. Maybe love was supposed to hurt sometimes. Then he whispered, "You know, you'd look even better if you toned up a little." Just saying. And there it was, sharp, cold, sinking its teeth into the fragile peace I'd built around myself. I laughed, too soft, too small. "Maybe." He pressed a kiss to my temple. "I only tell you this because I care." But caring wasn't supposed to feel like being peeled apart from the inside. Still, I curled into him, because the thought of losing him felt worse than the sting of staying. Worse than anything. I used to believe that people unravel all at once, one dramatic snap, one breaking point. But with him, I learned the truth. You don't shatter in a single moment. You erode. Slowly. Quietly. Piece by piece until you're hollow in places you didn't know could go missing. The next week drifted by like a dream with jagged edges. He stayed over often, moving through my apartment with a kind of entitled ease, leaving traces of himself everywhere, his hoodie slung over my chair, his cologne clinging to the air, his presence lingering even when he'd already left. It felt like he was inside my walls, my bloodstream, my thoughts. I couldn't tell where I ended and he began. One night, we were getting ready to go out, something he insisted on. "It'll be good for you," he'd said. "You've been stuck in your head too much lately." But as I stood before the mirror, I felt his eyes on me like hands. "You're not wearing that, right?" he asked, eyebrows lifting. "It doesn't do your shape any favors." My skin prickled. I thought it looked nice. He walked up behind me, placing his hands on my shoulders from behind, meeting my gaze in the mirror. That reflection, me, small and uncertain, him, tall and sure, looked like the truth of us. Like a before and after video that only played one way. "You're pretty," he murmured, "but you make it hard on yourself. You don't highlight the right features." This, he tugged lightly on the hem of my dress, adds volume where you don't need it. My stomach folded inward. "I can change," I offered quickly, already stepping away from the mirror. He sighed, exasperated. "God, you're sensitive. I'm giving you honest advice. Would you rather I lie to you?" "No," I whispered. But it wasn't honesty he gave me, it was control dressed as care. Then came the switch. It always did. When I returned from my room wearing something tighter, something he'd once said made me look decent, he turned, softened instantly, and smiled like I'd just given him a gift. "There she is," he said, pulling me into a kiss that almost made me forget the tears I'd blinked away minutes earlier. "You look perfect." Perfect. The word wrapped around my ribs like a ribbon and a noose at the same time. At the bar, he kept one hand on my waist the entire night, his grip firm, possessive. People probably thought it was protective, maybe even romantic. But I felt how he held me just a little too tightly, as though reminding both of us who I belonged to. When we got home, I was exhausted emotionally, physically, soul deep. He wasn't. He wanted closeness, affection, attention. And I gave it to him because the alternative, his disappointment, felt like a punishment I couldn't handle. Not tonight. Afterward, as I lay against his chest, he stroked my hair and murmured, "See? When you try, you're everything I want. Everything I want. Not everything I am." I lay awake long after he fell asleep, the weight of his arm over my body both comforting and suffocating. My thoughts spiraled back to the months after my mother died, those raw, unbearable days when the world felt like a room filling slowly with smoke. He'd shown up then, holding me while I cried, calling every day, telling me I wasn't alone. He'd become my oxygen, my anchor, my escape. But anchors don't only ground you. Sometimes, they drag you under. I stared at the ceiling, guilt and longing twisted into knots inside me. I loved him. God, I loved him so much it felt like a sickness I couldn't cure. But somewhere, deep beneath the fear and the dependency, I felt something else rising. Something quiet, unfamiliar, dangerous. A small, whispering doubt. A voice that sounded like my own. Is this love, or just survival? I didn't let myself answer. Not yet. But the question didn't leave. It lingered. It waited. It grew teeth. I didn't plan to confront him. I never planned anything with him. He set the weather, and I learned to dress for the storm. But that night, something in me snapped. Maybe it was the way he sighed when I walked into the room, or the way his eyes skimmed my body like he was scanning for faults. Or maybe it was just the slow accumulation of 1,000 little cuts finally bleeding through the surface. We were eating dinner, barely speaking. I pushed my food around my plate, appetite gone, when he said casually, "You really shouldn't eat all of that. You've been a little softer lately." The fork slipped from my hand. The sound was small, but inside, something cracked like glass under pressure. "Do you hear yourself?" I asked, voice shaking. "Do you realize how often you comment on my body?" He blinked, surprised not by my words, but that I dared to say them. Oh God. Here we go. "No," I said, louder now. "Here I go? You make these little remarks every day, and I pretend they don't hurt, but they do. You make me feel like I'm not enough unless I'm some version you created in your head." He stared at me like I'd insulted him. "You're being dramatic." "I'm being honest," I said. "It feels like you don't even want me the way I am." He scoffed. "I'm trying to help you. I'm literally trying to help you be your best, but you twist everything I say." "That's not help," I said. "It's control." His eyes darkened. "Wow. Classic. You really are losing it. I tell you the truth and suddenly I'm some villain? You're being paranoid." "That's not paranoia," I whispered. "That's pain." He slammed his hand against the table so hard the plates rattled. "You wouldn't have survived your mother's death without me. You think I didn't carry you through that? You think anyone else would have put up with how broken you were?" The words hit like a fist to the chest. He stood, looming over me. "I made you. I fixed you. And this is what I get? Accusations." I pushed my chair back, heart pounding. "You don't get to use my grief against me." "Oh, grow up," he snapped, stepping closer. "You're being crazy. Don't call me that. Then stop acting like it." His voice was sharp enough to cut. He reached out, too fast, too aggressive, and grabbed my wrist. Not hard enough to bruise, but hard enough to terrify me. Hard enough to show a version of him I had never seen so clearly. "Let go," I said quietly. "You're not walking away from me over some imaginary insult. Let go." This time, my voice cracked. He froze. And in that moment, seeing the flash of rage in his eyes, the willingness to hold me still until I bent, I realized something that chilled me deeper than grief ever had. He wasn't the man who held me during my mother's death. He was the man who used that moment to make sure I stayed. Slowly, he released my wrist, breathing hard. I stepped back. And back again. He stared at me like I was slipping through his fingers. And for once, I wasn't sorry. It was the first time I'd chosen myself. I didn't expect him to follow me. But he did, down the hallway, through the living room, right to the front door where I fumbled with my keys, hands shaking violently. "Don't walk out," he said, panic lacing his voice now. "You're overreacting. Come here. Let's talk like adults." I tried talking, I said without turning around. "You turned it into a weapon." He grabbed my arm, not as rough as before, but desperate, pleading. "Please, don't do this. You're the only person who gets me." "That's not love," I whispered. "That's dependency." He stepped in front of me, blocking the door. His breathing was ragged, his eyes glassy with fear or anger or both. "You're not really leaving. You're just scared. And confusing it with being strong." "No," I said, voice steadying. "For once, I'm scared and strong." He shook his head violently. "You're making a mistake. You're breaking us." "I didn't mean any of that, okay? I was just frustrated." "I love you. You know I do." He grabbed both my hands, pulling them to his chest, holding them there like an anchor. "I love you. I love you. Don't go." The words tore something open in me, but not the part he thought. Not the part that belonged to him. It hit the part that remembered love didn't look like this. Didn't feel like this. Didn't hurt like this. "I'm not safe here," I said softly. His face twisted. "Safe? With me? I'm the only one who—" "You're the only one who what?" I cut in. "Who tears me down? Who makes me feel disgusting in my own body? Who reminds me daily that I'm not enough? Like and subscribe to the channel, by the way." He flinched as if I'd slapped him. "You ruined how I see myself," I continued, voice trembling but true. "You took my grief and turned it into a leash." His mouth opened, but no excuses came out. Only silence. I stepped past him. "Don't leave," he whispered, voice broken now, collapsing in on itself. "Please. I need you." I turned back. "I needed you too," I said. "And you used that against me." Tears burned my eyes, but they didn't stop me from opening the door, stepping into the hallway and breathing air that didn't smell like him. His voice followed me, pleading, begging, cracking, but I didn't look back. I couldn't. Because for the first time since my mother died, I realized I didn't need someone to save me. I needed someone to stop drowning me. And that someone was me. I closed the door to my apartment hours later and stood alone in the quiet, the kind that didn't feel like punishment anymore. That night, with shaking hands and a heart stitched from fresh wounds, I booked my first therapy session. Because he had shattered my body image until I couldn't look in a mirror without hearing his voice. Because I deserved to rebuild myself in my own reflection. Because I wanted to be comfortable in my skin again. For me.